There once was a small village in the middle of an unnamed country. In this village, they had a tyrannical king, but they also had a food problem. The king in this country mandated that everyone start growing food in a garden. Daniel and his father saw their neighbor's garden, and they knew that they wanted it to look nice, but they didn't have the time and money to spend making it look perfect like this. They wanted to make their garden just nice and square. So Daniel and his father began planning how they were going to build their garden in their backyard. They wanted to see how many raised flower beds they could fit if they filled the entire space that they have. The dirt area that they had available was 20 feet by 15 feet, and they wanted to know how many raised flower beds they could fit in this area if they made each bed 3 by 5 feet. So they wanted to know how many total they could fit, even though there would not be any room to walk. They just wanted to do this part for fun. So Daniel and his father begin by doing a test flower bed. They take one sample spot in their dirt patch and they plant a garden that is 3 by 5 spaces wide. They do this because it helps them envision how they're going to do the rest of the flower beds and boxes and make sure that everything is right, because Daniel and his father also want everything to be symmetrical and exactly the same throughout the garden. They don't want any of the raised flower beds to look different. They want them to all have the same spacing, the same plants in the same spot, and the water in the same spot. Daniel and his father then began doing each flower bed progressively higher so that it could help them really envision how many flower beds that they could fit. So as you can see here, Daniel and his father did 5 3 by 5 raised flower beds, which each flower bed being one tier higher than the last one. Once they had figured out how many flower beds they could fit like that, they decided to fill the rest of the space that they had. So because they had 3 by 5 flower beds and they could do 5 across, they knew that they could do 4 downwards. So it was 5 across and 4 downwards, which with each flower bed being 3 by 5. In the end, Daniel and his father figured out that each garden was 3 by 5. The space that they had was 20 by 15. 20 by 15 is 300 squares. 3 by 5 is 15 squares. So then they figured out that if they did 300 divided by 15, they could fit 20 raised flower beds in their garden if they had no space for paths or lighting or anything like that. So in the end, Daniel and his father figured out that they could fit 20 flower beds, but they probably would only do 18 or so that they had space to walk through their own garden. In the end, they grew enough food to satisfy the king, and they all lived happily ever after.